Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the next part of the topic of weak squares. And in this video I have prepared a game between Polugajewski and Jan Donner from the year 1966, so let's jump right into it. I just briefly want to go through the opening. It was the Najdorf defense, the Sicilian Najdorf, and Polugajewski went for bishop c4 here, e6, bishop e3, b5, and f4. This used to be one of the old lines. Also Bobby Fischer played like this pretty often. And after bishop e7, f5. So this is the whole concept of this pawn push, forcing black to play e5. And now we can already see the square on d5 will be something both sides will play for. White wants to put a piece there, and black obviously wants to avoid that. So black does have this weak square here, but on the other side the pawn on e4 can also be a target, which black should try and attack. Knight e2 followed, knight bd7, bishop g5, bishop e7, knight g3, and after knight c5 we have the first small exercise for you, and Polugajewski played a very strong move here. So if you want to pause the video and have a think here, now is the time to do so. He played bishop takes f6, which is strong from that regard, because as I said before, the square on d5 should be something both sides are playing for, and with bishop takes f6 you're eliminating one defender of the d5 square. So now we have two pieces controlling this square on d5, and after bishop takes f6 only this bishop on b7 is left. Black took back with the bishop, and now bishop d5, again a strong decision, eliminating the last piece that can potentially be in our way from completely dominating the square on d5. And after bishop d5, knight takes d5, now white has managed to get his dream position. The knight on d5 is basically incontestable, and white already has a large advantage here. Obviously, also as we've seen in the last example, we have this strong square here on d5, but these strong squares are often also connected with a weakness. In this case, it's also the pawn on d6, which also can be a target in the long run. Black played bishop h4, queen f3, short castle, long castle, rook c8, king b1, very logical, just putting this king on a safer square, where there are also no checks along this diagonal. And after knight d7, here Polugajewski went knight f1, also asking the bishop on h4 actually where he wants to go, because now after g3 kicking it back, then h4 could again kick it back, so now this bishop is in quite a tough spot. You could also ask why he doesn't take here then, but after h takes g3, then the h file also opens up with a crushing attack for white. So rook takes h7 would already could be a threat. Also queen h5 is in the air, so yeah, this is also not good at all for black. So I went knight d7, knight f1, as I said, a very strong idea, bishop g5, h4, bishop h6, and now the bishop finally looks like it found a nice square here, but after knight h2, with the idea of knight g4, we're again threatening to take on h6, ruining black's pawn structure, and the bishop simply has nowhere to go. Black went knight b6, but after knight g4, takes, f6. We could already take on h6, but Polugajewski decided not to yet, since there is basically no rush. The bishop anywhere doesn't have anywhere to go. So he went queen d3 first, and now it was time for him to put maximum pressure on the pawn at d6. And simply after queen a8, he just went a3 again, making luft for his king. And yeah, in the long run, black he lost. He doesn't really have a plan here. That's the whole issue. The only thing to mention here, maybe, that taking here right away could be a bit too early, since after queen takes e4, black could maybe hope for some counterplay. Now this pawn on f5 is weak, pawn on g2 is hanging, knight is hanging here, so that would be a bit too early. So he just went a3. Since he's in full control, he doesn't have any rush, but after rook d8, he decided now it is time to take on h6, and after queen d2, he's simply ready to pick up the pawn on h6. If king g7 would happen, I guess there's also rook d3, with the rook also joining into the attack, and yeah, also g4 would be there, potentially playing g5 on the next move, so black is totally doomed here. Queen b7 happened in the game, but after queen h6, queen g7, queen e3. Pawn on d6 is still a target, and we won a pawn in the whole process, and Polygievsky managed to win this game without any big troubles. So just to recap quickly what happened here, I think the very important decision here was to take on f6. Once you realize the square on d5 is something to play for, then it makes sense to say goodbye to the bishop pair for a small moment. And after bishop f6, bishop d5, now white managed to take full control of this d5 square. So not only in general is this whole idea here important, but especially for the Sicilian defense. You can get this pretty often, and once you know this idea with bishop f6 and then putting a piece to d5, your opponent can come into some pretty big troubles, as in this game, pretty quickly. So I hope you enjoyed this this video, again on the topic of weak squares and how to use them. And in the meanwhile, you can follow me on my socials, Twitter, Instagram, my website, felixpoberger.com. And until then, thank you for watching, and see you next time.